What is Gnosticism? Etymologically speaking, the word Gnosticism comes from the late Greek word, nstikos, which means knowing, or able to discern. Gnosticism can also be viewed from the Greek word, gnosis, which means knowledge, or insight. Broadly construed, however, Gnosticism refers to various early Christian sects that claimed direct personal knowledge beyond the gospel, or the church hierarchy. Gnosticism flourished in the 1st century AD among Jewish and Christian sects. However, the exact origin of this school of thought cannot be ultimately traced, although it is possible to locate influences or sources as far back as the 2nd and 1st centuries BCE, such as the early treatises of the Corpus Hermeticum, the Jewish apocalyptic writings, and especially Platonic philosophy and the Hebrew scriptures themselves. Formally defined, Gnosticism is the belief that human beings contain a piece of God within themselves, which has fallen from the immaterial world into the bodies of humans. Hence, the Gnostics put more emphasis on personal spiritual knowledge, gnosis, above the orthodox teachings, traditions, and authority of traditional religious institutions. Viewing material existence as flawed or evil, the Gnostics believe that knowledge must come from outside the material world, and the agent who brings it is the Savior or Redeemer. In fact, for the Gnostics, all physical matter is subject to decay, rotting, and death. Those bodies in the material world, created by an inferior being, are therefore evil. Trapped in the material world, but ignorant of its status, the pieces of God require knowledge, gnosis, to inform them of their true status. It is important to note that during the first 3 centuries of Christianity, there was no central authority until after the conversion of Roman Emperor Constantine the Great in 312 CE. Christian communities taught many different views. In the 2nd century CE, some groups, now collectively referred to as Gnostic Christians, claimed to have access to secret knowledge about the nature of the universe, the nature of Christ, and what his appearance on earth meant to believers. In the middle of the 2nd century CE, a group of Christian leaders retroactively referred to as the Church Fathers, such as Justin Martyr, Irenaeus, and Tertullian, wrote volumes against these Gnostic Christians. It is equally important to note that the Gnostics, as well as the Church Fathers, were educated in the various schools of philosophy. Many of the schools shared the theories of Plato and his view of the universe. For Plato, God, or the highest good, existed beyond the material universe, was perfect, and so would not have created an imperfect world. He posited the existence of a secondary power, the demiurge, who created matter, the substance of the physical realm. Most Gnostic systems promoted this view. Just like the modern school of philosophy known as existentialism, the Gnostics asked and addressed the following questions. Who am I? Where did I come from? What is the meaning of life? Why am I here? And what is my true self? It is interesting to note that Gnostic writings are extensive. Many so-called Gnostic Gospels are presented as lost books of the Bible, but in fact, did not meet the criteria when the canon was formed. In many instances, they contradict the Bible. In 1945, a vast library of Gnostic documents was discovered in Nag Hammadi, Egypt. Along with the writings of the early Church Fathers, these supplied the basic resources for reconstructing the Gnostic belief system. Core Gnostic beliefs. Gnostic beliefs clashed strongly with accepted Christian doctrine, causing early church leaders to be embroiled in heated debates over the issues. By the end of the 2nd century, many Gnostics broke away or were expelled from the church. As a result, They formed alternative churches with belief systems deemed heretical by the Christian Church. While many variations in beliefs existed among the different Gnostic sects, the following key elements were seen as core Gnostic beliefs. On dualism. The Gnostics believed that the world was divided into the physical and spiritual realms. The created, material world, matter, is evil, and therefore in opposition to the world of the spirit, and that only the spirit is good. Adherents of Gnosticism often constructed an evil, lesser god and beings of the Old Testament to explain the creation of the world, matter, and considered Jesus Christ a holy spiritual God. On God. Gnostic writings often describe God as incomprehensible and unknowable. This idea conflicts with Christianity's concept of a personal God who desires a relationship with human beings. Gnostics also separate the inferior God of creation from the superior God of redemption. On salvation. Gnosticism claims hidden knowledge as the basis for salvation. The Gnostics believed that secret revelation frees the divine spark within humans, allowing the human soul to return to the divine realm of light in which it belongs. The Gnostics, thus, divided Christians into two categories, with one group being carnal, the inferior one, and the other being spiritual, the superior one. And for the Gnostics, only the superior, divinely enlightened persons could comprehend the secret teachings and obtain true salvation. This is in contrast to the Christian belief that salvation is available to everyone, not just a special few, and that it comes from grace through faith in Jesus Christ, and not from study or works. On Jesus Christ. The Gnostics were divided on their beliefs about Jesus Christ. One view held that he only appeared to have human form, but that he was actually spirit only. The other view contended that his divine spirit came upon his human body at baptism and departed before the crucifixion. Christianity, on the other hand, holds that Jesus was fully man and fully God, and that his human and divine natures were both present and necessary to provide a suitable sacrifice for humanity's sin. Gnostic rituals. Gnostic Christians were baptized, and they participated in the Eucharist or communion. Gnostics did try to promote female ministers in the Eucharistic celebration, bringing them into disagreement with the Church Fathers. The most controversial of Gnostic ritual was the bridal chamber, where one attained Christhood. In the Gnostic document, Exegesis of the Soul, the language and metaphors of marriage were applied in a union with Christ. The schools of philosophy taught that one should care for the soul over the body, or apatheia, which means no passions, not letting the physical urges of the body rule one's life. Such teachings were construed as ascesis, or discipline, as in athletic disciplining of the body. Gnostic Christians took control of the body literally. In fact, they were the first to practice celibacy, that is, not entering into a marriage contract, as well as chastity, that is, never indulging in sexual intercourse. In this way, the traditional life cycle was broken, and no more divine sparks would be trapped in a physical body. A small minority of Gnostic sects may have taken the opposite view. As part of the evil physical world, governments, man-made laws, and social conventions were no longer valid. Several church fathers claimed that this led to sexual immorality. We cannot confirm such practices, but by the 18th century CE, these groups were labeled libertines after the publication of the writings of the French philosopher, the Marquis de Sade. It is important to note that while the church fathers deplored the Gnostics, they nevertheless absorbed the concept of celibacy for the clergy. By doing so, it was understood as a living sacrifice.